much like House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan and Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, our next guest is as active as ever in exposing government and holding bad, corrupt actors accountable. Between he and my co-host, I'm pretty sure they account for at least 90% of FOIA records requests. In the last few days, especially, Judicial Watch has had numerous bombshells that we are able to discuss tonight. Here to talk about it all right now is Tom Fitton, who serves as the president of that very organization. Tom, great to have you back.
Hey, good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, this latest dump, 500 pages or so, regarding the Secret Service assisting Hunter Biden involving the disposal of this possibly illegal firearm that he had. This was at a time when neither he nor his dad were experiencing the protection of the Secret Service. Is this in any way appropriate?
Well, the big question is, what was the Secret Service doing? And they weren't providing him protection at the time. And the reporting is, and including Hunter's text messages or his email communications, show that his then girlfriend, the widow of his brother, got ticked at him for some reason and took a gun and threw it in a dumpster nearby. And according to both Politico, The Blaze, and as I said, Hunter seems to suggest this as well, the Secret Service and the FBI went and vacuumed documents from the store from which he purchased the weapon. And so we asked for documents about this from the Secret Service. We got the runaround. I think they said they had documents, and then they said they didn't have documents, and then they said they did have documents. So we sued. We got the records, as you note, the other day. And the records don't answer the question one way or another. They suggest that they were looking at the reporting. One official said, well, why did we do this? We weren't providing him protection. Did we do a favor? And then the official response to a Politico reporter who was writing a story on this was there were no records of this taking place. On top of that, though, he asked for further clarification. Did anyone go over to the store? And they didn't want to expand beyond their official comment. So you have to wonder, did something happen on, in a way that wouldn't have created records? And certainly now there's issues about whether the FBI was involved as well. Just a curious set of circumstances, don't you agree?
Tom, I want to ask real quickly, it's been a known rule here in Washington forever. You don't use the military for political purposes. They're there for our nation's security, and that's it. But Joe Biden used those Marines in that famous Red Wall speech last summer. You have filed a lawsuit to try to compel the Pentagon to find out the circumstances in which those Marines ended up in that video, in that very partisan, hateful speech. Tell us the status. I think it's going to be one of the big lawsuits of 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I hope everyone remembers that speech. It was awful. He was before Independence Hall, and I think they had purposely set up the lighting as such to be intimidatory, but frankly, it just had echoes of dictators from 50, 60 years ago. It was truly awful for the president of a republic to engage in that type of speechifying. Which was designed to paint a target on Trump and all of his other political supporters and anyone who opposed Biden. Yeah. You see the picture there. And behind him were two Marines, at least two Marines, if I recall correctly, that raised objections immediately among folks who watch this issue and are sensitive about the use of the military for political purposes. So we asked for the documents about, tell us what happened here. Was there any involvement? Who was communicating with the White House, basic information. And, how many documents could there possibly be about this? It was one incident, one issue. We've got the runaround, so now we're in federal court. So that whatever the Pentagon doesn't want to turn over, they're willing to violate FOIA law to force us to sue in order to keep those documents secret.
Absolutely incredible. I want to shift gears because I'm about 4 hours from Vegas, depending on if I speed. And we're used to hearing the phrase, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. We're not used to hearing that type of secrecy, though, with respect to vaccines and COVID. But you filed for some records from the HHS and found this confidentiality agreement between the United States and the UK regarding vaccine adverse events. It seems like that's the type of information that the American people and the British people would really want to know. So why were they so apt to keep it quiet?
Well, they were talking about anaphylaxis responses, adverse events related to the vaccine, and they were sharing information with the UK, their UK counterparts. And it was an important agency within the public health establishment involved, at least on our end, in advising on the vaccine. And so they were exchanging information. And both sides were very concerned about the confidentiality agreement they had. And I read this and I said, well, what do you mean? What confidentiality agreement? Why are we engaged in a secret deal to keep secret information about adverse events related to the vaccines? I just think it's troubling. And, the document speaks for itself. What is this secret agreement? And it's not the first time we've seen this. Back when COVID first emerged, we uncovered documents showing there was an agreement with the Chinese. The Chinese had dictated terms of secrecy in an agreement in exchange for our ability to go over there and look at what information they had on the virus at the time. Obviously, they weren't terribly forthcoming, so there wasn't much maybe to keep secret. But first, we have the Chinese communists basically entering into an agreement with our government officials to keep material secret about the COVID. And now it looks like when it comes to vaccine adverse events, there's a confidentiality agreement that no one previously knew about with the United Kingdom. It is troubling.
Yeah. Real quickly, Tom, I've got about 30 seconds. Secrecy, censorship, all the things our founding fathers never intended the American government to be involved in. How do we start turning the tide on this?
Well, we need to ban the government. I think the law already prohibits it, but we need to be explicit that these agencies shouldn't be able to communicate with third-party groups to censor American citizens. Funding for those efforts need to be cut off. We've seen recently that there's been funding of these groups through the State Department to target little old Judicial Watch, for instance. So it's bad enough these entities are doing the wrong thing, but they're doing it in league with the government that really suggests the First Amendment is on a thin edge these days,
terrifying,
at least when it comes to social media.
Absolutely. Tom, you do incredible work. We'd love having you on every time. Come back soon, please. And we'll be right back after these commercials.